People are producing more with less. We have this functional fixedness as executives that we think every problem requires money. There's an old story about from back in my early consulting days about a major retailer that had a problem with a detergent manufacturer. The detergent manufacturer was shipping pallets of product to them, and occasionally about 1 out of every 10,000 boxes would be empty. And that doesn't seem like a big problem, except for the return. When you have hundreds of stores all over the world, getting these things returned and getting credit, and it was this big deal. So the retailer went to the manufacturer and said, you got to fix it. So they hired McKinsey, as you do, and they brought in a bunch of 15-year-old kids from McKinsey. I joke. I have a nephew that is there.
We're on the same page. Sorry.
I have to be careful, but they brought in these $2,000 an hour 15-year-old kids that walked around for a couple of weeks and came back and said, you got to tear the whole line out. And you got to put a machine in there that weighs each box. And the executive said, yeah, this is a great idea. Let's shut the factory down. Let's rebuild everything, retool the whole thing. And it worked. There was no more problem. The executives called the McKinsey consultants, and I don't know if it was McKinsey or Deloitte, so don't sue me, McKinsey, whoever it was, but they called the consultants in and they said, we'd like to go tour the factory and see this thing in action. So they get out there and they find that the machine has been unplugged. And they see an employee walking past, and one of the executives says, why is this machine unplugged? And they said, oh my God, some idiots came in here, put this stupid machine, and they said the damn thing jams all the time. There's a mess. We can't hit our production goals. They said, so we just unplugged it. And he said, yeah, but we solved the problem. Why are we not getting the partially filled boxes anymore? And they said, oh, Joe went over to Dollar General on his break. He got a box fan, sat it on a chair here by the line. Anytime an empty one comes down, just blows it off the thing, right? So all these guys spent millions of dollars. $9 box fan was the solution. All you had to do was ask Joe to run over on his break. But we do this all the time. We sit in the boardroom and we try to analyze the solution to problems. And sometimes I have to remind CEOs, there are steps in your organization that goes down to where the work is done. Yes, I know you might have to brush shoulders with people that don't know how to play golf and don't have a great wine collection, but go down there and just ask them what is happening, and you may be surprised.
Well, I love what you said earlier where you talked about you're a gopher, but that when people ask you for stuff, you make certain it's right.
Yes.
And then you go do it. You added that line. And I was like, oh no, is he going to say you just go do it? And instead you added a line, which is so critical. Yeah. And you mentioned servant leadership. I actually have a t-shirt that says you can't throw rocks when you're washing feet. And you think about servant leadership. That's really what it's. If you get off of this thinking you're the corrector, I have the gift of judgment.
Yeah.
And you get down there, like you're saying, washing feet.
Yeah.
Get down, doing that stuff like Chick-fil-A's people going on in line.
Yeah.
It's huge. Yeah. No, I love what you're saying. This is good stuff.
Let me make a point to that, because I think you hit the nail on the head. And it's part of, we started talking about methodology at the beginning of here. When we do this work with the believables, we have them nominate pain points, and then they have to stand up in front of the whole team, that's 6 or 8 or 10 people that's standing there, and they have to say, this is what I'm suffering with. It has to be quantifiable. I cannot hear, oh, I hear this all the time. Every time no, none of that stuff. Tell me the number. 50% of the time this happens. Everybody has to agree. They might not agree. One might say it's 75, one might say it's 25, and we have to say, well, let's split the difference, and we negotiate it out. Then we teach them some critical thinking methodology, but they are the front line. We refuse to let them solution. I don't want to hear your solution. I want you to tell me, do I need to analyze something? Do I need to design something for you? Do I need to train on something, or do I need to enforce that training? So I won't let them solution in that room. Listen, there are times where somebody's like, I have a real idea here, and I might write it down and hand it over to the executives, but I don't want them solutioning in the room because they don't have purview. They do not fully understand how the organization runs and the legal requirements and all those kind of things. So what we do is we have a list at the end. I've got a list of 15, 20, 30 things that I take back to the executives and I show them, and I have the employees rank them. What's the number? If you could only get one thing from this, what's it going to be? What's number 2? What's number 3? Because the word priorities is a very interesting word because it didn't exist 75 years ago. The plural of the word is priority. Some business guru made it priorities, but that word didn't exist for the beginning.
Yeah, I think I heard that recently somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. So figure out, put this in an order of priorities, hand it back over to the executives and say, look, here's what the remedies that your people think. Now, some of these might be really simple. Hey, can you fix this? Can we get another log into the system? Start solving some of this problem and communicate back out with them and say, hey, we heard you. Thank you so much. You know what? Number 2 on the list, unfortunately, regulatory issues prohibit us from doing that. Thank you so much for the wonderful suggestion. Sometimes you might analyze the problem and actually get the employees in the room and say, hey, we need the believables back. Tell us why that happened. What do you think? What kind of things could happen from this? But that's really important, that list isn't just you go do it. Many times you have to analyze that.